The slap echoed across the pool deck. People froze. Lifeguards turned. Water rippled around a little girl who had just been hit by a stranger. The woman didn't even flinch. Standing there in her oversized sun hat and expensive sunglasses, she pointed at the girl like she was calling out a wild animal. "She splashed me, on purpose!" she yelled. "This child needs to be arrested!" But the girl didn't say a word. She just stared up with wide, frightened eyes. Her arms shook from the impact. She was barely 8 years old. And she couldn't speak, not because she was scared, but because she was nonverbal. And that woman? That wasn't just a rude stranger. That was a Karen. What she didn't know. The girl's father was already watching from across the pool. And he was a former district attorney. This wasn't just a tantrum. This wasn't just entitlement. This was assault on a disabled child in a public space. And it was about to become very public. It was supposed to be a calm Saturday morning. The sun was out, the sky a cloudless blue, and the local community pool had just opened for the summer season. Families filed in with sunscreen, floaties, and juice boxes. Laughter bounced off the water as kids jumped in, splashing around. For most people, it was just another fun weekend. For Daniel and his daughter Emma, it was more than that. It was freedom. Emma, 8 years old, had cerebral palsy and was nonverbal. She couldn't run or play like other kids. But in the water? She could float. She could smile. She could move. Every Saturday, Daniel brought her here. It was their ritual. He always booked the first hour, when it was less crowded, so Emma wouldn't be overwhelmed. She had a yellow swim vest, decorated with little daisies, and her own lane marked with pool noodles. Daniel sat at the edge, feet dipped in, keeping a watchful eye. He was tall, clean-shaven, early 40s, always in a plain gray tee and sunglasses. The kind of man who blended into the background, unless he had to stand up. He didn't talk much to the other parents. He wasn't there to mingle. His attention was on Emma, always. Her giggles when she kicked. Her delight when a lifeguard tossed her a floating ring. Her tiny wave every time she passed her dad on a paddleboard. Emma had been doing better, too. The water helped. Doctors said she was improving her coordination, even making progress in speech therapy. Daniel called it her happy place. Until she arrived. She walked in like she owned the pool. Designer tote bag. Loud phone voice. High heels on concrete. Not a swimsuit in sight. Just drama waiting to explode. She dragged a boy behind her, maybe 10 or 11, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The lifeguards asked if she had a reservation. She didn't. She waved a gold membership card in their faces. "I pay more than all these people combined," she said. "Get me a chair. And some shade." She sat up right at the corner of Emma's marked area, ignoring the cones and the "reserved for therapy use" sign. Daniel noticed. So did the lifeguards. But no one said anything. Not yet. The boy tiptoed into the shallow end. She scrolled on her phone. Emma floated closer, her arm gently brushing the water near their spot. That was it. Karen stood up like she'd been burned. "Excuse me? Is your child splashing me?" Daniel looked up, confused. Emma was barely moving. She wasn't even close enough to touch anyone. "Ma'am," he called, calm but firm. "This is a therapy lane. My daughter has limited mobility. She's not splashing anyone." Karen rolled her eyes. "Well, maybe she shouldn't be in a pool if she can't control herself." Daniel stood. He took a breath. Not yet. Not in front of Emma. Not unless he had to. "She's not hurting anyone," he said, measured. "Please respect the space." Karen didn't respond. But her glare stayed. Emma didn't notice. She kept floating. Kept smiling. The way she always did on Saturdays. And then, while Daniel turned for just a second to grab Emma's water bottle, he heard it. The slap. Emma's head jerked to the side. Her little body froze in the water, one arm still half raised toward her floaty. Her eyes blinked rapidly, confused, then scared. The pool went silent. For a moment, even the splashing stopped. A mother gasped from the far side. One of the lifeguards dropped their whistle. A child started crying. And Karen? She stood there with her hands still halfway in the air. Chin up. Lips tight. No shame. No remorse. She hit me first, she barked. I want her removed. Daniel was already there. He stepped into the water, shoes and all, and pulled Emma into his arms. His voice was sharp. You laid a hand on my daughter? She splashed me, Karen shouted. And she gave me attitude. She's old enough to know better. She's disabled. I don't care, Karen screeched. You people always use that as an excuse. If she can't act normal, maybe she shouldn't be out in public. The words stung louder than the slap. Lifeguards rushed in. One of them, a tall teen named Megan, stepped between them. Ma'am, you need to leave the pool area. Now. Karen scoffed. Are you joking? That child assaulted me. She did nothing of the sort, Megan replied firmly. You hit a disabled minor. That's assault. Karen pointed a manicured finger toward Daniel. He's threatening me now. I want the police called. Right now. I agree, Daniel said coldly. Call them. Emma clung to her father's shoulder, not crying, just silent. Her tiny hand gripped the strap of his wet shirt. Her cheek was red where Karen had struck her. Several parents had pulled out phones. Cameras were up. One mom whispered to another, I got the whole thing. Karen finally noticed. What are you people doing? That's illegal. You can't record me. You're in a public facility, one dad said calmly. And you just slapped a child. A disabled child, someone else added. Karen's face went pale, then flushed red. She looked around, realized she wasn't winning this crowd. But instead of backing down, she doubled down. She needs to be evaluated. I want her arrested. I'll press charges. You'll all see what happens when you mess with me. Daniel looked straight at her, voice steady. Do you even know what you've just done? Karen opened her mouth to respond, but stopped when she saw the two uniformed officers walking through the gates. A staff member had already called them. Karen immediately flipped the switch. She waved frantically, lips quivering like she was the victim. Officers! Thank God! This man, this child, attacked me. The officers didn't move toward her. They walked straight to Daniel. One of them, a black man in his late 40s, nodded at Emma. Is she all right, sir? Daniel nodded slowly. She's shaken. But she's okay. She was assaulted by that woman. The other officer, younger, turned to Karen. Ma'am, can you step over here and explain what happened? Gladly, she said, eyes narrowed. You'll see. I'm the only one telling the truth here. She started ranting, words tumbling out, exaggerated, desperate. No one interrupted. Not even the officers. Because while she was speaking, one officer received a video from a parent. He pressed play. 30 seconds in, he looked up. His jaw clenched. He turned to his partner. Yeah, he said quietly. We've got enough. Karen didn't notice. She was still talking. That wouldn't last long. The officer raised one hand, calmly cutting Karen off mid-sentence. That's enough, ma'am. Karen blinked. Excuse me? I'm the victim here. That girl, she was aggressive. And this man, he threatened me. Don't you hear my side? We've heard enough, the officer replied. And we've seen the video. Several, in fact. You slapped a disabled minor. Unprovoked. Karen opened her mouth again, but the words stuck. Her eyes darted between the officers, the phones pointed at her, the crowd now fully turned. Daniel stepped forward then, Emma still in his arms. She nestled into his shoulder, her fingers curled in the collar of his shirt. One cheek still red, but her breathing steady now. Daniel's voice was quiet. Steady. Controlled. My name is Daniel Hargrove, he said. Former Assistant District Attorney. Civil Rights Division. I spent 10 years prosecuting abuse cases against children with special needs. Karen froze. And what you just did, Daniel continued, is not only morally revolting, it's legally indefensible. Especially in this state. Especially in front of that many witnesses. The younger officer's eyebrows raised slightly, recognizing the name. I thought I recognized you, he said. You argued the McFadden case 2 years ago, didn't you? Daniel nodded. Karen's mouth finally moved. You're lying. You can Google me, Daniel said. And you can also call your attorney. You're going to need one. That hit like a truck. Karen staggered back slightly. I didn't know she was disabled. How was I supposed to know? It was posted. One lifeguard cut in. The vest has medical markers. Her name's on the list. She was in the therapy lane. Karen looked around again. The crowd wasn't just silent. They were staring, with disbelief. With disgust. She turned to the officers one last time, clinging to hope. It was an accident. I panicked. The older officer shook his head. We saw the video. You raised your hand. You struck. And then you tried to flip the story? That's not panic. That's malice. Karen's son stood to the side, quiet, ashamed. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just stared at his mother like he didn't recognize her. The officers began reading Karen her rights. Her voice cracked. You can't arrest me. I have status. I pay taxes. I know people. Ma'am, the younger officer interrupted. You're being charged with battery of a minor, public disturbance, and harassment of a person with disabilities. She was stunned. No screams now. No bravado. Just silence as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. Someone clapped. Then another. And then more. Until the whole pool deck joined in, not loudly, not mockingly, just a slow, steady rhythm. Like a quiet tribute. Not to Karen's fall, but to Emma's dignity. Daniel didn't smile. He didn't need to. Justice wasn't loud that day. It was precise. It was calm. And it had finally spoken. Karen didn't cry when they cuffed her. Not at first. She kept her chin up, shoulders squared like she still had control. But the moment the officers guided her past the crowd of parents, phones still up, eyes burning through her entitlement, her mask cracked. What are you all looking at? She snapped. This isn't over. Nobody answered. The silence was louder than any insult. At the station, it got worse. The evidence was overwhelming. 4 videos from different angles, 6 witness statements, a therapy lane reservation, and a medical confirmation of Emma's condition. The officers processed the charges swiftly: battery of a minor, disturbing the peace, harassment of a disabled person. Karen spent the night in a holding cell. The next morning, her attorney, well-groomed, polite, and clearly exhausted, met her with grim news. It's all over the internet, he said. You've gone viral. Indeed, she had. The video had spread fast. By noon, it hit 1 million views. By evening, news anchors were dissecting every frame. Hashtags lit up every platform. Hashtag Justice for Emma. Hashtag Poolside Karen. Hashtag Protect Disabled Children. And Daniel? He stayed silent. Declined interviews. Focused on Emma. But behind the scenes, he was busy. He met with the DA's office, not to push for a harsher sentence, but for something deeper. Something lasting. I want her to learn, he said. I don't want a headline. I want her to understand the damage she caused. The district attorney agreed. Karen was offered a plea deal. In exchange for avoiding trial, she would plead guilty to all charges and complete the following: 12 months of probation. 6 months of community service with children who have special needs. Mandatory attendance in a disability sensitivity course. Public apology, written and video, to Emma and her family. Karen resisted. But she had no leverage. Her lawyer told her plainly, "You can either be sentenced by a judge, or you can take responsibility now." She signed the deal. A week later, her video apology was published. It was shaky, heavily edited, and clearly uncomfortable, but it was public. And beneath it, Emma's supporters flooded the comments with stories of their own. Their children. Their pain. Karen read every word. That was part of the deal too. Consequences didn't end with court. Her job let her go. Her HOA revoked her privileges. Her country club suspended her indefinitely. But perhaps the most painful blow? Her son. He stayed silent through it all. Refused to speak to her for weeks. And when he finally did, his words were simple. "Why would you hurt someone like her?" Karen didn't have an answer. Because deep down, she knew there was none. Justice didn't come like a hammer. It came like a mirror. And in that mirror, Karen finally saw herself. Weeks passed. The pool reopened with new signage, clearer boundaries, and a plaque by the therapy lane. It read, "In honor of those who flowed differently, but shine just as bright." Daniel didn't write it. He didn't ask for it. But the manager insisted. "We want Emma to know she's always welcome here." Always. Emma returned the next Saturday. She wore the same yellow vest. Same daisy print. But this time, she didn't float alone. 2 other children joined the therapy lane, kids with braces, walkers, hesitant smiles. Daniel sat nearby as always. But he wasn't the only one watching now. Other parents came over. One brought a towel. Another brought juice. Conversations bloomed, not about what Emma couldn't do, but about how far she'd come. Karen's name faded from the headlines. But her story didn't vanish. In schools, teachers used it to talk about inclusion. At City Hall, it inspired a proposal for expanded accessibility. And in quiet corners of the internet, parents of disabled children wrote, "For once, someone stood up for us." And it made a difference. Emma never understood the viral video. She didn't need to. But she knew something had changed. People smiled more. And when she floated, unbothered, unafraid, Daniel saw something he hadn't seen in years. Peace. Not the kind you fight for in courtrooms or battle for online. The kind that comes when the world, for once, stops seeing difference as a disruption, and starts seeing it as a reason to protect. That summer, Daniel framed the apology letter. Not to forgive Karen, but to remind Emma, one day, that her voice mattered, even if she never spoke a word. And that justice? Justice didn't shout. Sometimes it simply floated. Like Emma. Free.